guys, this is Nadia from Imbali Crafts, and today I want to show you how to create these super simple wire wrap earrings. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button because I upload new stuff on a regular basis. I quite often make PDF tutorials for the videos I put up on here. They also come with kits. I have all sorts of gemstones, square half round wire and beads and all sorts of nice goodies on my website, so I will pop a link below and you can take a gander over and see if there's anything you fancy. Last but not least, we have an awesome wire wrap group, which I will also pop a link below, so take a look and come and join us. Right, let's get started. So to begin with, we are going to cut 16 centimeters, which is around 6 inches of wire. That's the 1 mil, which is 18 gauge if I'm not mistaken. And we're going to take the first one, and using your bell making pliers or a round nose plier that works as well, we're just going to create a tiny loop in the middle. So just try and keep it as central as possible, and the loop only needs to be small because we're going to be using it to attach beads. So next we're going to take one of the other wires and a piece of 0.426 gauge weaving wire, fold it in half, and we're going to wrap it around this wire about 4 times or 5 times. I think I'm doing it here. Next we're going to pick up the second wire without a loop, and we're going to place it underneath the first wire, and we're going to wrap the weaving wire around both wires twice, like so. So once, twice, and then bring it down below. And lastly, we're going to pick up the wire that we have just put a loop in, and we're going to slide the loop past the weave, and then we're going to go in between wire 1 and 2 and wrap the weaving wire around wire 2 and 3. So I'm counting the wires from top to bottom, 1, 2, 3. So wrap your wires around the last 2 wires, so wires 2 and 3 twice, like so. Then bring your weaving wire in between wire 2 and 3, and we're going to wrap it around wire 1 and 2 twice. So this weave quite often is done with just 1 wrap. I'm just going with 2 because I quite like the look of that. So next, once we've done that, we're going to wrap our weaving wire around wire 1. I think I've gone around it 4 times. So each instance of this weave has got 2 wraps around 2 wires, and then 4 wraps around wire 1, which creates the spacing in between. That's what it looks like so far. There's a little inset on the left where you can see what the weave looks like. So next I'm rotating the weave. I'm not flipping it, I'm rotating it so that the pattern of the weave stays on the front. So I'm wrapping around my weaving wire around wire 2 and 3. So I'm bringing it in between wire 1 and 2, and I'm wrapping this wire, the weaving wire, around wire 2 and 3 twice, like so. Bring it in between wire 2 and 3, and then I am wrapping it around wire 1 and 2 twice. That's it. And then I'm going to come right underneath in between wire 1 and 2 and wrap it around wire 2 and 3. Hope that all makes sense. And next I'm going to do the spacing in between the weaves, which is 4 times around the bottom wire, which is wire 3 in this case because we flipped the design. So often I push my weaves together with my pair of pliers because that will give me a nice neat sort of look, and that's what it looks like. Just refer to the inset on the side. And now we're going to continue with 3 wraps on each side. So I've done 3 wraps on each side. You can see the sort of weaving wire is a little bit kinked because I went too far and I had to undo it. So I'm straightening it out a little bit. So the problem is with that, obviously you can carry on weaving, but the problem is it can be very brittle. So you have to be very careful weaving with it once you had to do that. So the next step is to bend the weave into V, because we need that gap adjusted to fit a bead in it. So I'm just holding on with my pliers. Sometimes that doesn't work. So I've decided I'm just going to use my fingernail. So I'm just holding it right at the bottom, and then I'm using my fingers and my fingernail to kind of hold it in place and push it against it, and that actually works quite well. And then I'm just trying to keep adjusting it until I'm satisfied with the gap. So for this instance, the sort of harder nails work quite well. So I'm pushing it in, and I'm going to check the gap. So bring in a bead. So I think this is a 12mm bead. So obviously you can do this with, you know, smaller beads, larger beads. You're just going to have to adjust the weave. So that fits quite nicely. So next I'm going to add a 3mm bead, and then the 12mm on the one wire on the right, and then a 3mm copper bead on the left hand wire, like so. And then what we're going to do here is, oops, it just keeps falling off. So we're going to do here is feed the left wire through the big bead and through the small bead on the wire on the right, just to kind of cross feed, if that makes sense. So I'm going to feed, or the other way around, say in this instance I take the right wire and feed it through the bead and the small bead. So you can see I've spared you the fiddly bits, and I've done it. So the wires are through all the beads, and then what I'm going to do is just pull that tight. Now obviously you have to be careful, especially in my instance where I have already crimped the wire, so I have to be very careful when pulling, because it can break really easily in this instance. So very carefully pull this tight, and it's really important that you finish off the weave with 2 wraps on the top wire, because we want to reassemble the weave as neatly as possible. So I will show you in a moment. So I flipped the pendant over, and now I'm going to reintegrate that weaving wire into the first wire on the bottom here. See the inset on the left, and I've finished the wrap with 2 wraps before I added the beads, and now I'm going to continue this pattern with 2 wraps, and then I'm going to start back up into the pattern. So you can see I did 2 wraps, and now I am restarting the pattern by doing 2 wraps around wire 2 and 3, bring it over the top, and then do 2 wraps around wire 1 and 2, push it together, and 2 wraps around wire 2 and 3, like so, and then start afresh, 4 wraps around wire 3, like so, and then we're just going to continue until we have enough of a length. Right, so I think I've done about 5 wraps in total on each side, so that will give me enough of a spacing to create the next shape. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking the bottom wire, and in this, on the right hand side, this will be a clockwise loop. So it doesn't need to be very big, only large enough to house a jump ring to attach the beads later on. So you want to make it as inconspicuous as possible. So I am just pushing it in and making it as small as possible. That wire gets trimmed off in the end, so it doesn't really matter what you do with it. So I'm just kind of straightening it out a bit, see what the pattern looks like, and I'm quite satisfied with it. So I'm going to shape it until I'm happy with it, and do the same on the other side. So that's it. So I've done both on each side. So I'm going to do, we're not going to use the last wire as I said, so we're going to continue with the top 2 wires, and I'm going to start off by wrapping the weaving wire twice around both wires. Then I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to wrap the weaving wire around the top wire 3 times. Is it the bottom wire? I can't actually see properly here. So basically what this is, a 2x3 weave, so we're going to do the same on both sides. You can check the inset to see what the weave looks like. So I've finished the weave, and what we're going to do next is, at the space where the 3 wires go into 2, we're going to put a bend in it, like so. Going to do the same on the other side, and just make sure you've got an equal spacing on each side. So going to bend this in like so until the wires meet up. So, and the weaving is a little bit short, so I'm going to have to add in a couple of more weaves. So I've added in some more, and what we're going to do next is create a bell. So you're going to have to decide how long you want this weave to be, so you can add in more if you want to, or make it shorter if you want the earring to be shorter. I think I've done about 9 weaves here. I will put this in text just now so that you know. So what I want to do is the 2 inner wires need to run parallel to each other. So I've bent them at an angle, just so that they meet up, because we're going to bind these together with the remaining weaving wire in a second. So I'm weaving, it doesn't matter which side, the weaving wire around both wires twice, then once around the right, like so, and then once around the left. And then I'm going to wrap it again, once around the right wire and once around the left wire. And this is the pattern we're going to continue until we reach the top. So really easy, simple pattern, and just very repetitive until we have enough of a length to create a bell. So it looks like so far. So next we are going to shape the bell. So what I'm doing here is I bend the bell forward, and then I'm going to use my half round pliers, my round nose pliers, to shape it. Just be careful not to press too hard, otherwise that will kind of damage the weave. So just very gently shape it, and then you can also use your fingers to kind of rotate the bell into place. So shape the wires and then push it through the middle, like so. And then we're going to fold those 2 leftover wires around itself at the top. So I'm just using my pliers for that, and it only needs 1 wrap. You don't really need to wrap too many times. 1 is enough, and that will be enough to hold everything in place. There isn't much of a weight on this, so that will work just fine. Press it down with your pliers. So next we're going to trim off the excess wire. Just make sure you trim it off in the middle somewhere, so that the wires don't get, you know, hooked on your clothing or hair if you're going to wear these. And then I'm going to press it down with my pair of pliers, just to make sure everything looks neat and tidy, and that's what it looks like so far. Next, I'm going to shape the wires on the outside, and on the right hand side this will be an anti-clockwise swirl, like so. And I always advise to do, when you're doing symmetrical work, to do each step on each side at the same time, because that way you can control the symmetry much better than if you do everything on one side and then you repeat on the other side. I just personally find it easier to keep everything symmetrical. So you can see here I'm shaping the top swirl, and now I'm going to shape the bottom swirl. Just adjust it, and then I'm going to do the same on the other side. So that's what it looks like so far. So I'm just going to trim off a little bit. I shouldn't have trimmed off so much because the swirl was going to be a little bit too short for my liking, but these things happen. So you're just going to have to leave a little bit of a longer length, and then see, you know, how long you like your swirl to be. So what I am doing here is I'm squeezing the end of the wire to taper it down a little bit, so that the end doesn't look, you know, just cut off and sort of an ugly sort of trim at the end. So I tend to taper my wire by squeezing it, and then I'm rolling it into the shape that I want, and I place it over the weave and adjust it until I'm happy with how it looks. That's what it looks like so far. So I'm going to do the same on the other side. Right, so the next step is to take a piece of wire and attach this weave to the frame itself, or the rather the swirl, not the weave. So what I often do here is I usually take a T-pin or a needle, and I poke a hole in the weave, and that gives me easier access. I didn't have one handy here, but that's what I normally do. It gives you much easier access to feed an extra wire through a weave that has already been created. So in this instance, I'm just wrapping my weaving wire around the swirl, and then I'm just finding, an area where I can attach this wire to through the weave. So you're just going to have to find a space that is suitable for that and make sure it looks as neat as possible. So once I've done that, we're going to create a detail. So this is a very simple rosary link, which is not closed. In fact, you can close them up, but in this case they are left open because it's just an earring and they don't actually need to be closed. So what I'm doing here is I am adding a head pin, and I've put my beads on there, and I put a 90-degree angle in it, and then I take my roundness pliers and I feed the wire around it and bring it back up into a lollipop, if you will. And normally you can wrap it around the stem itself. In this instance, I'm just trimming off the excess wire because we're going to be adding it to the earrings. So I've already added 2 small ones, and this is the large one, so I'm just bending it open sideways, and I am going to add it to the earring itself, and that's all you need to do. So squeeze it shut, and you can put everything into loss and give it a good polish. I tend to add the beads after the loss so that they stay nice and bright. And that's the whole thing done. So I've just polished up the earrings and I've put them in loss, and this is how it looks. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe. I would absolutely love it if you would pop into my Instagram, my Facebook, and my TikTok. Visit me on my wire wrappers and metalsmith group. We always have some fun challenges, and as I said before, visit my website for PDF tutorials, kits, gemstones, wire, and all sorts of goodies. And that's it for me. Thanks for watching.